Krishna is saying. Krishna is saying, if one surrenders unto me, then these modes of material nature, which are under the direction of Maya, which means lust, anger, greed, that's her assistance. The modes of material nature is very vicious, very difficult to overcome. But Krishna says, if one surrenders to me, then he easily crosses beyond it. Krishna has no problem dealing with these agents. Sometimes devotees would say, Maya is so strong. Prabhupada would say, better to glorify Krishna than to glorify Maya. The problem is we just have to surrender to Krishna. Krishna is strong enough to take care of all these other elements. He can really eliminate all the lust and the greed and the anger. There's a nice prayer. Kamadinam katina katida Durnidesha. Yeah, I forget the rest of it. It means that the devotee is praying, Kamadinam, I'm under this, I'm being the servant of my desires, lusts, greed, anger, and they're so cruel that give me no release, and I have not gained anything, and so now I've decided, I've come to my intelligence recently, and now I've decided I'm going to surrender to you, to Krishna, and please save me. So Krishna wants that. He says that, just surrender to me. It doesn't matter how entrenched you are, even if one is considered to be the most sinful of all sinners. If he is in the boat of devotional service, he'll be free easily by my mercy. So this is now the culmination of the Bhagavad Gita. The whole story comes at this point, these verses. Krishna's summing it up. You have your choice. You can choose to be under these cruel masters if you wish, but you can be under me, and I'll protect you from all reactions. Don't worry about anything.
Thank you for those nice comments, Maharaj. Yes, so if we act according to Krishna's direction, he will guide us on how to cross that. Maya metam tarantite. We can easily cross beyond these material modes if we just surrender to him. And he says that earlier in the Gita, but now he's reminding Arjuna and us how we can do that. Even if we might have had some doubts earlier in the Gita, but if we keep reading, Krishna will continue to alleviate those doubts that we might have, and alleviating Arjuna's doubts, but of course, he's speaking this to Arjuna, who's a pure devotee, for our benefit. So we'll go to text 61. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Purport. Arjuna was not the supreme knower, and his decision to fight or not to fight was confined to his limited discretion. Lord Krishna instructed that the individual is not all in all. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, or he himself, Krishna, the localized supersoul, sits in the heart directing the living being. After changing bodies, the living entity forgets his past deeds, but the supersoul, as the knower of the past, present, and future, remains the witness of all his activities. Therefore, all the activities of the living entities are directed by the supersoul. The living entity gets what he deserves and is carried by the material body which is created in the material energy under the direction of the supersoul. As soon as a living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. A person seated in a high-speed motor car goes faster than one seated in a slower car, though the living entities, the drivers, may be the same. Similarly, by the order of the Supreme Soul, material nature fashions a particular type of body to a particular type of living entity to work according to his past desires. The living entity is not independent. One should not think himself independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The individual is always under his control. Therefore, his duty is to surrender, and that is the injunction of the next verse. So in this verse, we hear that Krishna is directing the wanderings, and Prabhupada illustrates this by saying he's carrying out the soul transmigrating from one body to another based on what that soul desires. So he's fulfilling all of our desires through his energy and through the super soul. And so we might be put into a body that's able to do different things at a different capacity. We're all equal on a spiritual level, but we're not equal on a material level. Someone has a longer arm than me, they're able to reach higher on the shelf than me, or I'm not able to give childbirth. But women are, for example. So we're not equal on a bodily platform, but on a spiritual platform, we can transcend all of these material capacities, different capacities that we each have to serve the Lord. So even though we all might be serving him the same, different ways, if we think about this on a spiritual platform, Krishna is accepting all of our love, and it's being received the same, even though it's being acted out differently. He looks at the devotion of the person, not necessarily the outcome, you could say. Like one person could be offering just simply a bowl of rice or just plain rice to the Lord and put so much devotion into that rice. And the Lord takes it and sees all that love that devotee made by or offered it to him. And contrastly, a devotee could be making an excellent feast, 7 courses, but maybe he's a little bit distracted and his meditation isn't so nice. He might have some more chanting to do to clear the heart. The Lord will accept it, of course, but the devotion and the consciousness maybe wasn't on the same level as the other devotee who just offered a plain bowl of rice. Of course, we should always have better service, or always better service, ABS. We should always remember that. With any service we have, we can always improve. But Krishna sees the devotion. He does not necessarily see the outcome, although we should all strive for better service.
Yes.
So we hear that as soon as the living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. So we're all forced into some sort of bodily situation due to our past misdeeds. But fortunately, we've all come to the understanding, or we all have the desire to serve Krishna. We have the understanding that Krishna is the absolute truth and that we should serve him. And so we can break free of that bodily situation that might limit us to certain things. We can break free of that through serving Krishna. So yeah, again, Krishna is reiterating that he's directing us, and we can kind of think back in chapter 15, Sarvasya Chaham Hridishani Vishto Matashmatir Gyanam Apohanam Cha. He's giving us all remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, and he's also in our heart. So we hear from chapter 15, text 15, that he's in our heart there. So again, Krishna is reiterating in chapter 18 what we might have already read, but it's for our benefit because we need to keep hearing the same things over and over and over again for it to sink in. And we can think about this by just meditating a little bit on how much we act on the bodily platform versus acting on the spiritual platform, and see how far we have to go until we can understand that we're not our bodies, have that realization that we're not our bodies, and continue to act on that platform. So we'll go to text 62. O sign of Bart, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. Purport. A living entity should therefore surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart, and that will relieve him from all kinds of miseries of this material existence. But by such surrender, one will not only be released from all miseries in this life, but at the end he will reach the Supreme God. The transcendental world is described in the Vedic literature as Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam.
Yeah.
Since all of creation is the kingdom of God, everything material is actually spiritual. But Param Padam specifically refers to the eternal abode, which is called the spiritual sky or Vaikuntha. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Sarvasya Chaham Hridishani Vishtaha. The Lord is seated in everyone's heart. So this recommendation that one should surrender unto the super soul sitting within means that one should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, or Krishna. Krishna has already been accepted by Arjuna as the Supreme. He was accepted in the 10th chapter as Param Brahma Param Dhamma. Arjuna has accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the supreme abode of all living entities, not only because of his personal experience, but also because of the evidences of great authorities like Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyas. So this verse might be a little confusing if not read without the purport, because it's asking Krishna is saying surrender to him utterly. So we understand that this him is the Paramatma Krishna within the heart. And that by his grace, by surrendering to him, we can attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. So Prabhupada mentions again here, we're finding out for at least a second time what this means, based on him reiterating the verse from chapter 10, text 12 and 13, where he's talking about how we should accept that Krishna is the supreme based on the evidences of great authorities like Narada, Sita, Devala, and Vyas. So Krishna says that. He says, Arjuna Uvacha, Param Dhamma, Param Mama, Pavitram Paramam Mama, Purusham Shashvatam Devyam Adi Deva Majambhavum, Ahustam Rishaya Sarve Devarshi Nardastata, Asito Devalo Vyasa, Swayam Triva Bhavishyame. So we're seeing that Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa are declaring that Krishna is who we should surrender to, and that Krishna is he's eternal, he's unborn, like it says in the beginning, Param Dhamma, Param Brahma, Pavitram Paramam Mama, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma. So Krishna is the ultimate, Param Brahma, and he says the ultimate abode, Param Dhamma. So we understand from this verse again in chapter 18 that Krishna is the person who is worthy to surrender to, and Krishna is also in our heart, and we should surrender to that person too. Text 63. Thus I have explained to you the most confidential of all knowledge. Deliberate on this fully, and then do what you wish to do. There's that minute freedom we have.
We think somebody would be going to prison.
Purport. The Lord has already explained to Arjuna the knowledge of Brahma Bhuta. One who is in the Brahma Bhuta condition is joyful. He never laments, nor does he desire anything. That is due to confidential knowledge. Krishna also discloses knowledge of the Supersoul. This is also Brahman knowledge. Knowledge of Brahman, but it is superior. Here, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that he can do as he chooses. God does not interfere with the little independence of the living entity. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has explained in all respects how one can elevate his living condition. The best advice imparted to Arjuna is to surrender unto the supersoul seated within his heart. By right discrimination, one should agree to act according to the order of the supersoul. That will help one become situated constantly in Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of human life. Arjuna is being directly ordered by the personality of Godhead to fight. Surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the best interest of the living entities. It is not for the interest of the Supreme. Before surrendering, one is free to deliberate on this subject as far as the intelligence goes. That is the best way to accept the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such instruction comes also through the spiritual master, the bona fide representative of Krishna. So we all probably had this moment in our practice, at least at the beginning, where we were like, what about this? Do I like this? Is this worth my endeavor to learn more about this? So we all ask those questions to ourselves with the intelligence that we have. We try to get into it as much as we can. Of course, we know that we can't quite taste the honey inside the bottle until we open it up. So we could deliberate all we want on if we should try to dive further into Krishna consciousness, but that would just be licking the outside of the bottle of honey. So we use the right discrimination, and that's saying informed. We should be informed about the decisions we make, especially the decision so important as spiritual life. So we think about what we should do, and we might have questions, especially those maybe who haven't been practicing long, about why do I need to follow this a certain way? Why do I need to regulate myself from certain activities? And we understand slowly that some of the activities that we had before coming to spiritual life were detrimental to us, and so we try to regulate those activities. And that's why I'm mentioning that, is because it's part of the deliberation that we have. We're trying to calculate in a way, will this bring me more happiness or not? Will Krishna consciousness make me more happy than another activity, than satisfying my senses? So we deliberate, okay, I don't know yet, I don't know. But then eventually we can't even figure that out for ourselves, so we have to hear from someone who is more intelligent, has more knowledge than we do, because we can only deliberate so far. So we ask, as Prabhupada mentions, we seek instructions from a spiritual master on how to advance and how to overcome the activity that limits us from spiritual growth. And in that way, we can end our deliberation and get on with Krishna consciousness. We can just say, I'm all in, I'm going to do this, and I might not be, quote unquote, happy all the time, but I know this is the unending river of bliss that never stops flowing. Text 64. Because you are my very dear friend, I am speaking to you the most confidential part of knowledge. Hear this for me, for it is for your benefit. Purport. The Lord has given Arjuna confidential knowledge of the supersoul within everyone's heart, and now he is giving the most confidential part of this knowledge. Just surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the end of the 9th chapter, he has said, just always think of me. The same instruction is repeated here to stress the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. This essence is not understood by a common man, but by one who is actually very dear to Krishna, a pure devotee of Krishna. This is the most important instruction to all Vedic literature. What Krishna is saying in this connection is the most essential part of knowledge, and it should be carried out not only by Arjuna, but by all living entities. So we'll read that verse, text 65. Always think of me and become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise this because you are my very dear friend. Purport. The most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours, he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of Krishna, where he will be engaged in the association of Krishna face to face. This most confidential part of knowledge is spoken to Arjuna because he is the dear friend of Krishna. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend to Krishna and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. These words stress that one should concentrate his mind upon Krishna, the very form with 2 hands carrying a flute, the bluish boy with a beautiful face and peacock feathers in his hair. There are descriptions of Krishna found in the Brahma Samhita and other literatures. One should fix his mind on this original form of Godhead, Krishna. He should not even divert his attention to other forms of the Lord. The Lord has multi-forms as Vishnu, Narayan, Rama, Varaha, and so on. But a devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's. Prabhupada's purports are so nice because almost every sentence you can trace back to a verse. It's like he's just like writing down Shastra, just like sentence by sentence in his own words, of course. Because we can see from this verse, he's saying, worship the 2-handed form of Krishna. That's his best form. Well, we learned in the Gita earlier that's Krishna is saying that too. So it's so nice to just soak ourselves in that meditation. Please, Prabhu. Yeah, we can open for questions now. It's a good time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So I always had a doubt about this because, and I may have brought it up before, but I always get disturbed by it. I seem to like the idea of meditating on Lord Chaitanya's form better. And I heard that for us, like Lord Chaitanya, he's teaching that science which we really need to take up. So, is that Lord Chaitanya's instruction too? And even though that to focus on Krishna's form only, or does Prabhupada, I mean, it seems pretty clear, but I guess I'm just wondering, if Lord Chaitanya is included in this instruction.
Krishna Shravanam seems like he's got the answer.
Today is the auspicious disappearance day of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji. And Srila Jagannath Das Babaji taught that Krishna and Gauranga are identical, but one difference is Lord Krishna is the administrator of justice, whereas Gauranga is the administrator of mercy. And Gauranga is the Yuga avatar. So therefore, every Vaishnava should worship Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda side by side with the Hare Krishna mantra. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful answer. Yeah, Lord Chaitanya came to teach us how to be an expert devotee. And yes, Maharaj?
The first part of the question I didn't hear. What was it about the being attracted to Lord Chaitanya? Was that something?
I believe so.
Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur, I remember, it's one of the Mayapur festivals. Many devotees were there from all over the world. And he was saying that if you're worshiping Radha Krishna and you're becoming lusty, then stop it and just worship Lord Chaitanya, because he is Radha Krishna combined. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. So Lord Chaitanya is the form of Radha Krishna. So we're not missing Radha Krishna if we're worshiping Lord Chaitanya. He's there. And he demonstrated that when he showed different visions to different devotees, that he was Radha Krishna. So Ramananda Roy got to see that form, and other forms Krishna shows to different devotees.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Please.
So we hear this word about the heart a lot. And I find myself confused about this topic of the heart. Do it from the heart. You got to put your heart into it, or, surrender to the Lord within your heart, or follow your heart. All these things seem very vague to me, and I don't know what it means. But at the same time, it almost seems like this is the type of language that some persons that we meet can appreciate. They like to hear it when we say, something like that. So, on this topic, we're supposed to surrender to the Lord within the super soul, within the heart, which Krishna says is himself, which means Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. We're supposed to surrender utterly unto him. And I'm just wondering how to remove any vagueness from this.
So yeah, people do like hearing, just follow your heart. Of course, when we use that kind of those idioms or that language, we're thinking, surrender unto the super soul, surrender unto Krishna, who is super soul, and follow. That's the heart we follow, is Krishna. So we could say those things and we know what we mean. Someone else might not know, who's not practicing devotee, might not understand that concept. But we're hearing, it here. It's just surrender all varieties of religion, abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto Krishna. And so we might not know how to follow that super soul within the heart yet, Chaitya Guru. But that's why we take Diksha, we take initiation, or we seek out an instructing guru of some sort or a mentor to guide us on our path, because we're unable to hear that following the heart, you could say. Because people, they use that it's just like some phrase, it's just follow your heart, just follow your heart. Well, it's just like speculate whatever you want in your mind and do that. That's what that, in common parlance, that's what that means. Do whatever you want. And, here, we're basically exhausted of doing whatever we want, because we know that hasn't led us to anywhere nice. It's always the up and down, lamenting, desiring and lamenting, desiring and lamenting. But if we follow the guru, or we follow a mentor who is in this practice, we can come to the point to where we'll desire and we'll lament, and not lament to have anything, as if we get on this Brahma Bhuta stage that Krishna is talking about here. We'll be beyond desiring and beyond lamenting. And we'll truly be following Krishna. We'll be following our heart. That's what that means to us. Following the heart means following Krishna. Of course, we have our own desires. We should try to dovetail those desires in the service of the Lord. And if we have a spiritual master, we could ask him what he thinks about following those desires. Yes, Prabhu? Dr. Fred? Was that sufficient, Prabhu? You have something more? Okay.
So one time I was out on books with Valmiki Prabhu, and I told him, sometimes I feel a little bit nervous about doing some distribution or some preaching, even some inviting, even some waving or hello. I don't know. And he told me that when you get that feeling, when you're out there to like go and do something, like go and like at this time, like show him the card, or at this time, like say hello, or put the book in his hand, or whatever it may be, then just do it, because that super soul is guiding you, and you have to become perfect. You have to become expert at listening to that direction and just doing it, because that's how Krishna will bring you. Specifically, you're saying that's how you'll make new bhaktas. You just have to capitalize with that feeling, that direction from within. And so I know the basics of the philosophy, but when it comes down to like in the moment, what to do or what to say, I'm just lost or helpless. I feel helpless. So if, in the moment, it's not like anybody is right there. I have to decide how to execute the order of the spiritual master. So how do we, what then?
We tend to get on the mental platform a lot with these things. I do all the time. There's times where someone's like across the street and I'm like, oh, and Krishna's like, I've had experience where Krishna's like, go distribute them a book. Well, sometimes I've listened and sometimes I haven't. Sometimes I've listened and I went and like ran after the person, didn't did it nicely, but they didn't take a book. But like Krishna's trying to teach me something in that moment, what's the lesson of that? Of we can be eager to serve Krishna, might not go the way we planned it going, but they got exposure to one of the books. They might have touched the book, or they might have seen the book, or they might have seen the tilak on the devotee's head, and that's also auspicious for them too. So any of those little things we can do to put Krishna consciousness in the foreground of the everyday lives of people. And our mission in Kansas City is definitely to try to do that, especially when we're out in the plaza. So many people from so many different places come to the plaza. A lot of people are just tourists going there to have a meal at a restaurant or whatever. And so we can, chant and make some of them smile or give them books. So we might feel timid, but of course, we know before that we've given out books. So why are we timid now? Just some mental thing that's going on in our head. Maybe our chanting wasn't the best, so we don't feel so confident from the morning or something like that. We can look inside and think about those things. I like to take shelter of the kirtan on first, and then the kirtan gives me inspiration to distribute books, because then I realize how fortunate we are. Okay, I'll take two more questions. Oh, Fred, you had something?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. And thanks for the nice class. I'm wondering about really this always think of Krishna. Cannot but think of Krishna. We have 24 hours a day. So mold ourselves in a way that we essentially inundate our senses with Krishna, but then we talk about don't be on the mental platform, or don't be on this platform, or you are on this platform. But it seems to me that if the results of our actions are not what's important, and if Krishna resides in the heart, and we have to think of Krishna, if we're thinking about, is this how Krishna is directing me? Or if you're thinking of a song that's directly from the acharyas in our line, and you have faith that, that you're not qualified, but that all you have to do is fix your mind. And since you don't have the power to fix your mind, but you have these utensils with, essentially the activities given by Srila Prabhupada, what does one actually have to be striving to do? Or is it already done for us? Just like Krishna says to Arjuna, you don't have to fight, but all these men are already killed.
So all we can do is desire, really. So if we desire to serve Krishna, Krishna is going to see that we have the desire, and it's going to fructify. We plant that seed, it's going to grow. And always think about Krishna is to always be absorbed in this service. Why am I doing something? I'm doing it because it's for Krishna. Like for someone who's working a job, they could think, I'm doing this for Krishna, I'm making this money for Krishna so I can keep soul and body together, so I can serve my deities at home, so I can make sure they're provided for. So we might be just doing so many activities, but all of it's directed towards serving Krishna. And in that way we can think of him always, because we're thinking, oh, I need to get this for Krishna, I need to get that for Krishna. But some activities will bring us more awareness of that, of course. Serving in the temple, sweeping the floor, it's direct devotional service. There's no rerouting you have to do in your brain. It's like I'm sweeping Krishna's floor, or Chaitanya's right there, or Nityananda's right there. This is his floor. No one else's floor. This is his floor. So we can always strive to do more and more of those kinds of activities and gear our lives towards trying to do more of those activities. And so we can always think of him. And there was one devotee who came, and he was asking, what can I do at my work to promote my Krishna consciousness at work? And of course, we talked about chanting as chanting, and I told him you could chant in your mind. You don't necessarily always have to chant out loud if it's not like the time and place to do that. Or you could keep a picture of Lord Chaitanya on your desk. So you can look at him and meditate on him and understand why you're working, That's one way.
Well, even if this body is on rent to us from Krishna, we know that this is Krishna's, the earth is Krishna's, he's the supreme artist. But what is keeping us from thinking that the entire cosmos and beyond is not the temple of Krishna?
So we make distinctions. We don't, there's specific distinctions we make. We discriminate for our benefit and for the benefit, for our benefit. We have to discriminate. We can't just think, I'm going to worship this table and it can bring us some benefit. No, worshiping the deities in the form which they're given is a scientific process that's recommended in Shastra. Not worshiping a table. Oh, yes, it's Krishna's energy, but it's a table. So we discriminate what we do. And it's so we can develop the consciousness that Krishna is a person. That's the main point.
So then, if we're supposed to see, or a sage sees all, individuals as like part and parcel of Krishna, as Jiva soul, that was a nice point that you brought up, but, you can use a table as an altar, if you have the discrimination, but what I'm saying is that we're being taught how to discriminate properly, and sometimes I'm getting confused by others' confusion, and I don't necessarily understand, discrimination anymore, because everyone is a person, and even the animals, they have some ality to them. They have some, propensities, and they do things like, if we're seeing the tree that has a soul, it's just in dull consciousness. I'm wondering why it seems to be difficult, at least for me, or in my deluded perception, that that it's not as easy to work together to or I guess my question really is, why am I trying to be the doer when Krishna is the doer? That seems to be the most difficult thing for me to understand, actually, is that everything is Krishna's. He's also the doer. We have some minute free will, but I still struggle to not be impudent, and I can conjure up things that push me away from, kindness towards those who deserve utter and complete respect, which would be the devotees.
Maybe in these situations we can try to humble ourselves before Krishna. And we can understand the process of doing that is the chanting of the Maha Mantra. And by doing that, we can get further realizations. So and we can understand more and more, okay, what's my actual duty here? How to do this, how to do that. And we become more humble also to inquire from those who do know and who have been practicing longer. So we can have a submissive attitude when we ask them questions and be able to accept their answer as the answer. Of course, we should continue to use our intelligence. I'm going to go ahead and end here. It's past time. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending Srimad Bhagavad Gita class. Manchakalpa Tribhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva Cha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.